So hello everyone, my name is Nadine Foty. I'm the founder of the Palestine in Our Schools curriculum, and I'm also a children's book author about books on Palestine, and I'm also a former teacher as well. And I am half Egyptian, half Palestinian. My father was born in Palestine, and I grew up in Washington, D.C. And I'll get into more about my personal story later in the presentation. But this presentation is just aimed at talking about ways and strategies for educators to talk about Palestine in the classroom in a way that is not divisive, in a way that shows positive depictions of Palestinians. So, and art and music is a great way to do that because it's something that many people can relate to. So I think it's a great entry point for teachers and also students. Let's move on. So first, let's talk about where is Palestine. So I think something that's super important is, thinking about how maps are constructed, and not just solely about Palestine, but just in general. We know that maps are really a product of colonialism because the borders were really created as a product of, colonialism and imperialism. And so we see on this first map on the left, it's showing the Arab world, which is what we kind of know as the Middle East. But we like to use the term Arab world instead because Middle East tends to be more of a Eurocentric term that is it's the Middle East in relation to Europe. So we kind of need to use the correct terminology also to talk about these parts of the world. So generally, we prefer the terminology, the Arab world. And if you see on this map, actually, Palestine is not even written. It says Israel, where Palestine is. And I just juxtaposed that with another map from a much earlier period. I think this was like in 1917, but you have Palestine written on the map. And so just kind of thinking about what type of materials we have in our classrooms that don't necessarily humanize certain communities or even, allows students to believe that some of these countries don't even exist. So, yes. So for reflection questions, just to think about, is Palestine represented on your classroom map? Have you considered how Palestine not being represented may affect some of your students? And I'm going to show you a clip from a short film that one of my colleagues, who's also a children's book author, created. And I want to just show this and for you to reflect kind of about the ways that children and students may feel if their country is not represented on the map in their classrooms. And feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. So I'm just gonna play it now.
Welcome, everyone, to your first day of school. First, let's take roll. Kelly?
Here.
Billy?
Here.
Sammy, Samed,
Samida.
Samida. Okay, to begin, let's discuss what makes us all unique and celebrate our diversity. Everyone come up and place a mark on where your family came from. My family came from Ireland. Who's next? Jennifer, great. United Kingdom, fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, who would like to go next? Okay, great. Lily, come on up. Your family's from Germany, great. Thank you. Okay, Samida, your turn.
Palestine?
There's no Palestine on the map. I'll mark Israel for you.
Baba? Where am I from?
بابا تعالي شوي. You're from Palestine. They call Yafa the bride of the sea. It's the golden majestic beauty.
خدني يا فلسطين خدني يا طير لا تواخدني خدني يا فلسطين خدني يا طير لا تواخدني رجعني على بلادي عينك أهلي وولادي رجعني على بلادي عينك أهلي وولادي خدني يا فلسطين خدني
بلادي يا أم النضال يلي أنجبتي أبطال بلادي يا أم النضال يلي أنجبتي أبطال خدني على الأرض المحتل على السهل وعلى التل خدني على الأرض المحتل على السهل وعلى التل
خدني على فلسطين خدني خدني على فلسطين
خدني
I want to go to Palestine.
Inshallah, Baba. We will return.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to class. Let's continue with yesterday's activity. Yes, Samida?
My name is Samida, and I am from Palestine.
Okay, so let's just go back in here. So yeah, so I just want to kind of see okay, I just wanted to check if anybody was kind of responding, but I do think that like this is a great kind of depiction of how, not having Palestine represented on the map, how it affects Palestinian children in the classroom, and how it also creates a skewed idea of history by not representing, countries that have existed for centuries, for since the beginning of time. And so I think it's really important. And I had similar experiences as a child in DC public schools, which I'll go into later, similar to Samida. So, and I think too that this clip represents too that if, the teacher was more well educated maybe about Palestine and about how to deal with these kinds of situations, then she would have been better equipped to allow Samida to feel more comfortable, more heard, and like her community is being represented. So let's move on to the next. So the reason I'm putting these visuals is because this is really not something that's solely about Palestine. I mean, maps and colonialism is something that we see in to many different types of countries, whether that be like Ethiopia and Eritrea being separated, or Pakistan and India. And, because of colonialism and because of the way that these arbitrary borders were drawn, we kind of don't really see an accurate view of what these countries really are. So we kind of need to dissect that. And just like any other country that exists on the map, we would want it to be rightfully represented. The same goes for Palestine. So I'm just putting this visual on the right here of the African continent, kind of in the scramble for Africa, and creating all these arbitrary borders that are creating, ethnic conflicts between different communities, and how they were all strategically placed historically to then allow European governments to then acquire the resources of the African continent. And we also see that too in the Middle East as well. And then also this visual too of, whether it be India and Pakistan, whether it be Mexico and the United States, and how the United States is occupying Mexican land. So when we want to think about these concepts, we have to think about how we're thinking about maps across the board, and not solely just in relation to Palestine and the Palestinian map being represented, but also just how can we discuss geography with our students in a meaningful way, where they can understand that these borders are kind of arbitrary and they were created and don't necessarily represent these communities in an accurate way. And so I think that's an important thing to kind of talk about when talking about Palestine and the maps not representing Palestine. So here's another visual of another map, and this is a very, well-known visual where it shows kind of the Palestinian map and the loss of land over time. And, you can see how in 1946, how the majority of the land is Palestinian, and then gradually as you go into 2010, and, now it's even less Palestinian land, but you see how Israel has acquired more and more land. And so I want to kind of talk about how before 1948, which is the moment when the state of Israel was created, and as Palestinians, we call that moment the Nakba. And Nakba in Arabic means the catastrophe, because it was the moment when a lot of Palestinians were ethnically cleansed and they were kicked out of their homeland, and many, many fled from Palestine. But before 1948, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Palestinians, non-Palestinians were all living together on this land. And then 1948, with the establishment of the State of Israel, you see a lot of actions that are against international law. And mind you, this is not my personal opinion, like as a Palestinian, but there are many scholars who are American, who are Israeli, who are Jewish, who have done scholarship and written things about these actions against international law, such as building illegal settlements, how Israel is representative of an apartheid system, and how what they have been doing since 1948 and even before, into when the British were colonizing also this area, that they've been engaged in an ethnic cleansing project. So let's move on. So to think about this more generally, about how we think about Palestine. So maybe some of you maybe don't have the best view about Palestinians. And let's take this kind of a little bit further and think about just how Arabs in general are vilified in the media. So ask yourself the question, what comes to mind when you think of Palestinians or Arabs more generally? And how can this bias potentially show up in our classrooms? So if we as educators already have an idea of Palestinians as being subhuman or terrorists or animals, then how is that going to translate into the classroom about how we try to show up for our Palestinian students, or how we choose to teach about that part of the world to our non-Palestinian students as well? And so this is a really great resource that I use in professional developments with teachers. And it's a film called Real Bad Arabs, How Hollywood Vilifies a People by Dr. Jack Shaheen. And basically what he does is he goes through films from Hollywood and shows how there's a consistent trajectory of negative depictions of Arabs and how this then allows the consciousness of people to justify to justify basically invading Iraq, invading Afghanistan, and having all these occupations around the world where Arabs are being killed. Then in the conscious of many Americans, it's seen as justified because, well, they're already subhuman, they're terrorists. And so I'm going to show just this really short clip of Real Bad Arabs, the just the trailer of the film so you all can see just to get an idea. But this is an excellent resource for anybody who kind of wants to, unpack their own biases about this community and really dissect it. So I'm not sure why the full screen isn't going, but I'll just play it from.
Just like out of an action movie, but this is real. This is real.
We are at war with Iraq. Wasn't that easier because for more than a century we had been vilifying all things Arab? When we think of Arabs, what do we see? What images come to mind? Arabs are the most maligned group in the history of Hollywood. They're portrayed basically as subhumans. If we feel that Arabs are not like us, or not like anyone else, then let's kill them all. Then they deserve to die, right?
Where's the mother?
See the Arab humanity, what's left?
Well, I'm sorry, I probably should have warned people about the graphics and that, but as you can see, those are the types of depictions that we see in and day out about Arabs in the media. And so how does that subconsciously translate into how we think about Arabs more generally, in a positive light or in a negative light? And obviously, I mean, all people in any group of people, there are good and bad of all people. But when there is when there is an extreme where one group is just vilified constantly, that definitely can shape attitudes and perceptions of that group of people more generally, and definitely follows us into the classroom as teachers. So just some reflection questions to think about. Do you allow space for your Palestinian or Arab students to share about their culture and history of their struggle, despite whether you may agree or not? And do you elevate certain communities of students' struggles more than others based on how well educated you are on that specific community or issue? So I think this is a really important reflection piece just to think about, yeah, like, do you treat Palestinian Arab students differently? And would it help maybe if you were more educated about that part of the world in order to show up better for them? I'm not sure if people want to share any comments in the chat. Uh, Chanel, do we have time to go through any comments in the chat or no?
Yes, we do. Yeah,
Okay,
everyone
great.
feel free to answer the reflection questions.
Just want to give you all a chance to kind of give your opinion and give some feedback about how this kind of translates in the classroom for you. Where I'm not sure if anyone wants to make a comment. Okay, I'll allow for like a little bit more time if somebody wants to, but if not, we can move on. Okay. All right then. Well, I'll wait. Maybe somebody will share some more later on, and I can look back. But let's move on then. This is something that in any presentation that I do about Palestine, I really, really like to highlight because um, one of the biggest arguments that happens when people talk about Palestine is they say that it's anti-Semitic, that there's anti-Semitism in the schools, and Jewish kids are not going to feel heard if we talk about Palestine. And so I really want to unpack this argument for people because there is a clear distinction that we as Palestinians want to make between Zionism and Judaism. So for those who don't know, Zionism is an ideology that was actually founded by anti-Semitic leaders, ironically, in Europe. So Theodor Herzl, who's the founder of Zionism, he was actually an anti-Semite himself, and he intended to create an exclusively Jewish state in the land of Israel, which it was originally Palestine. And Judaism is one of the major monotheistic religions that is revealed through the Torah. And so I put this visual here because there are many Jews who are against the state of Israel and the occupation of Palestine, and they support, an end to the Israeli occupation. And so I think that that's a very important piece because there's many Jews who are against Zionism because Zionism is an ideology that is based in colonialism, in white supremacy, in excluding an entire group of people and removing them from a land in order to give a rightful homeland for the Jewish people. And so in many ways, the ideology of Zionism is actually exploiting Judaism and is not at all, in my view, a representation of Judaism. And as a Palestinian, I respect Jews just as I would respect any other religion, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, like any faith system. We as Palestinians are not anti-Semitic. We are just against the ideology of Zionism, which is in my view, a settler colonialist ideology. So let's move on. So I think this is really important because so there was a study done by the Pew Research Center. It's called U.S. Jews' Connections with and Attitudes Towards Israel. And in 2013, about 11% of U.S. Jews felt that the U.S. was too supportive of Israel. So kind of questioning that relationship. And in 2020, this figure doubled to 22%. So we really see like attitudes of young Jews, especially within the younger generation, changing towards Israel. And many people feel like they have been indoctrinated and they have not been given the truth, and that they feel that as Jews, they are being taught that the only way that they can exist as Jews is to unequivocally support Israel and that they can't be safe if Palestinians are alive. And this is an idea that is really being perpetuated. And Israelism is this film that came out, and actually the girl who's in the background here, she was a staunch Zionist and grew up going to Jewish day school, went to Israel, met with Israeli soldiers, did all these kinds of camps in Israel and everything. And then, when she visited Palestine, the Palestinian areas, she started to realize the indoctrination and how she really didn't want to support what Israel was doing. So I'm just going to show this trailer because I think this film is so powerful and it really illustrates how Zionism and Judaism are very separate ideologies, and that there are so many Jews who are at the forefront of the fight for self-determination of the Palestinian people, and that is a representation that the fight against Israel is not an anti-Semitic one, but rather an anti-Zionist one. So let's just go here very quickly, briefly. I like to show these videos because I think it captures it much more powerfully in a way that if I said it may not. So I don't know why the full screen isn't working, but let's just do it like from here.
Some American Jews who come here say, we came to Israel and we left from Palestine.
The non-Jewish community does not understand our obsession with Israel.
I went to a Jewish day school.
Summer camp, organized trips to Israel.
You want to go to Israel too? Yeah! We want to go! We want to go!
Israeli soldiers, they're hot, they're awesome, they're strong.
We actually have had quite a few of our former students join the IDF. And these are kids, these are 18, 19-year-olds. Amazing.
I told my parents I don't even need to apply to college. I'm gonna just join the Israeli military.
10% of my graduating class joined the Israeli army.
We were deployed to the West Bank.
I don't think I realized the extent to which what I would come to see on the ground would really shock me and horrify me.
When people look at the West Bank today and say, this is an apartheid system, it's not just throwing out a word.
Palestinians live in, day out, without experiencing a day of freedom.
You see what non-democracy looks like.
What we've been told is that the only way that Jews can be safe is if Palestinians are not safe. The more I learned about that, the more I came to see that as a lie.
Within the Jewish community, there's been a striking change.
They're really angry at the way they were indoctrinated, justifiably so.
When we talk about we're losing the kids, we lost them. I think they're a little super naive.
Anytime you cut against the grain, you're going to catch hell.
You are a self-loathing Jew. Go kill yourself. An anti-Semitic Jew.
The way that we talk about anti-Semitism isn't about protecting Jews, it's about protecting Israel. How dangerous is that?
They will do anything to preserve unconditional support for Israel.
The great irony is that there actually is resurgent anti-Semitism.
Jews will not replace us!
History is not going to judge us kindly.
So I really suggest, this documentary is available on YouTube. You can watch it. So I really suggest anybody to watch it just to get kind of more of an idea about the differences between Zionism and Judaism, and really understanding that this fight for Palestinian freedom and Palestinian self-determination is in no way anything that is meant to make Jews feel uncomfortable or unsafe. In fact, we hope that more and more Jews are going to support the fight for Palestinian freedom. So I just have a little bit of resources that I find really useful that can kind of show the connections about the Palestinian issue with other social justice struggles that maybe we're more familiar with. And so Mark Lamont Hill is a journalist, he's African-American, and he wrote a piece called Except for Palestine, the Limits of Progressive Politics. So just talking about the ways that people are really liberal about every social justice issue, about every community, whether that be African Americans, whether it be Native Americans, whether that be the LGBTQIA community. But then when it comes to Palestine, there's always that exception. People are no longer progressive. So he kind of really delves into that in that book. Then we have Angela Davis, who's obviously been a staunch supporter of Palestine for years. And she's writing about the connections between Ferguson and Palestine. And there was a lot of communication on the ground between protesters in Ferguson and protesters in Palestine. So showing those connections between the Black Power and Solidarity movement with Palestine. And then Noor Arakat's Justice for Some, which is a book that basically just shows how the law makes exceptions that don't apply to Palestinians, so not allowing them to have the justice that they deserve. And then On Palestine by Noam Chomsky and Ilan Pappé. Just to note, Noam Chomsky, he was in Israelism. He was the older man who was talking with the kind of raspy voice. He's also a Jewish, and Ilan Pappé was an Israeli historian. And Ilan Pappé also wrote The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, which is a fantastic book that I suggest, that really lays out the history. And what's so interesting about that book too is Ilan Pappé is pulling all of his historical documents and resources from the Israeli archives. So which makes it even more powerful, because these are documents that Israel has created, and he's using that to prove the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And then also Black power in Palestine and showing the connections between the Black power struggle in Palestine historically. So I think these are all really good starting points for teachers to be able to learn more about Palestine and kind of unpack maybe some of the biases that they have by showing the connections that it has with other communities. And maybe that will prompt you to question, oh, do I apply this logic to the Black community, but I don't apply it to the Palestinians, or do I apply it to, I don't know, Native Americans, but I don't apply it to Palestinians. So just checking in, is Palestine represented in your classroom? And do you as a teacher feel equipped to teach about Palestine? If not, would you be open to allowing Palestinians to come into your classroom to speak about Palestine? And does the curriculum in your school include Palestine? If so, how is Palestine represented? So just thinking about these questions as we move forward. So my story is that I am a Washington, D.C. native. I'm half Palestinian, half Egyptian, a teacher, a children's book author, and also the founder of the PIOS curriculum. And so what prompted me to create this Palestine in Our Schools curriculum is that I grew up as a child playing music with my father and my siblings to educate predominantly American audiences about Palestine. So this would be at rallies, at libraries, at schools. And in this picture on the right, you can see me. My dad is kind of not shown fully, but he's playing the oud, which is like a guitar, an Arabic guitar. And also my mom, who's a visual artist, would also teach us about our Arab identity through art as well. And my mom herself has also done many exhibitions about Palestine and has painted about Palestine and the Arab world since she began as a child. And so I had many negative experiences throughout my time in excuse me, in DC public schools. As a Palestinian, I was prevented from being able to participate in international nights. I was not allowed to have a table that represented our food. I was told that I couldn't do a performance of a traditional folk dance. The teacher had put us at the end of the program last, and then told us that there wasn't enough time and wouldn't allow us to do it. And those are just like minimal experiences. Those aren't even all of the experiences, but this just shows you, just as like as a kid, I felt nervous about sharing about my Palestinian identity because my teachers would treat me differently. Because a lot of the time I was a passing white student, but then once my parents came, or once my Arab roots were discovered, specifically my Palestinian identity, because somehow Egyptian was more digestible for people, but when people found out I was Palestinian, I was treated very differently by my teachers and by administration. And then when I wanted to share about my culture in the classroom, that was just completely out of the question. And so it made me as a child feel like there was something wrong with the fact that I was Palestinian, when in fact it was something that should be celebrated just like any other culture. So through my experiences of sharing about Palestine and playing music and art and learning about it through art and through learning from my parents, I created this PIOS curriculum, which uses the arts, music, and children's literature as well to teach students about Palestine. And basically what it does, because, since I was a teacher myself, sometimes trying to incorporate a new community of people into your classroom can seem like a daunting task, especially when you already have so much to do and there's so much pressure on teachers already. So it follows a video lesson plan format, and I'll actually share one with you in a little bit, but it just explains everything that you need to do through a video. And I also provide educational resources for teachers through the video so that they feel well equipped to be able to teach about Palestine. Excuse me. So, and we're currently working at the Riverseed School, which is a Montessori school in Anacostia in Washington, D.C. And this is just a picture of us my co-presentation there. And we provide also in-classroom workshops. So we have the video lesson plans if teachers just want to take that and use it themselves to help them be able to teach. But we also have the workshops that we can come in as Palestinians and do the workshops in the classroom for the students. So this is just an example of, I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you the video where we explain for teachers how to do it. Show you
Most people
what
still think you need to have
sorry, I'll show you also what it looks like when we actually do it in the classroom. So
an online
sorry
business
about
to be able to
this
do this. So it's
ad.
3 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm here working from my laptop. I'm here in the city.
Welcome back, Burnout Teachers. Today's lesson will be about how to teach about the Arab world through music. I'm honored to have my father here, Nadine Foty, who is the co-owner of Quarter Tones Music, a DC-based music school that focuses and specializes on Arabic music.
So I'm actually the Arabic music specialist at Quarter Tones. We wanted to keep the culture of Palestine and the Arab world alive for a long, long time. And that's why we are teaching the children the song about La Tas'alni an Unwan, which is basically, don't ask me where my address, I'm a citizen of the world. And I did teach that to Nadine when she was young, and it just resonated in her mind for a long, long time.
How would you teach them the songs?
Basically, teach them the melody a little bit. Say like la 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 la. So when you go la 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 la. Okay, so when you go la 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 la, something like that. La 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 la.
So I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically you can kind of see how it will show you how you can use that specific song to teach them an Arabic song. And it's just much more accessible for teachers because I feel like it simplifies it and makes it very easy for you to be able to take that, even if you want to use the video itself to show to your students. You could do that too if you want. And then I just want to show very quickly, I think it was this one, yeah. This is how it looks in the classroom, so.
Can you say, just say, can you repeat after me, say, la, 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 la. One more time. La, la, la.
So yeah, I'll just show it briefly because we don't have a lot of time, but that's kind of how it looks like when it's in the classroom. So you can have the option through the PIOS curriculum of both. You have the videos that we can give teachers so they can do the lesson plan themselves, or we have we can come in and do them for you. So another song that we have too, and what I like to do too, especially with older children in in middle and high school, is have the Arabic translation as well. And so this song is called Ya Awlad Haritna, which means my neighborhood boys. And it basically just talks about Palestinian resistance. And you can see on the left, it says, boys of my neighborhood, they erected our kite will fly like the birds. And the kite in Palestine is really a symbol of resistance, like a bird flying free. And so we also did this, and what's really great about this song is you say yoya after each sentence. And so we had the kids kind of say yoya as well, which I can show you too here, because it makes it easy for them.
words in Arabic, and then you say yo, yeah, say that.
So to just make it easier, you just give them one word that they can say, but it makes them feel like they're having the experience. And of course, this was with, early childhood, but this can be applied to older kids as well. We've done formats with high school students as well.
Okay, great. And so this one, okay, I'm going to say يا ولاد حارتنا يويا. Okay, and then you say yoya every time, okay? I will say it along with you. Maybe Nadine. حارتنا يويا.
So yeah, so these are with younger kids, so we didn't get too much into like the the meaning and stuff of the words and stuff like that. But with older kids, you can definitely talk about the symbolism of these songs and what they mean. And the song before was talking about being a citizen of the world. And so I think this is really a testament in Arabic music to how, the songs are used as a way to talk about the struggle, but also to show the humanity of Arabs more generally and Palestinians. So we also use art workshops as well. So visual images that represent home, identity, and struggle, and also using art as a form of therapy to heal trauma and talk about difficult realities in our society. And so with a lot of students I've worked with too, we use the art as a way to connect with maybe something difficult that's happening to a student in our classroom and connect it maybe with what's happening in Palestine and look at the similarities and the differences. And so for this one, I have also, this is another PIOS curriculum format that you could go by. And it's basically using political cartoons to talk about Palestine. Welcome back, Bernard. And I'm not sure that we have a lot of time to go through the whole thing, but it's basically about I can just
Great way that you can introduce Palestine in the class.
Let me just start from here.
Palestine is such an excluded topic in American education. Political cartoons are a great way that you can introduce Palestine in the classroom. Naji al-Ali is a famous Palestinian cartoonist who is most widely known for creating the character Handala, who is a symbol of Palestinian resistance, and you will never see his face until Palestine is liberated. Naji al-Ali created this character because he was 10 years old when he was forced to leave Palestine and live in Ain al-Hilwa refugee camp in Lebanon.
بالفنانين الفلسطينيين. ليش احنا بنهتم بالفنانين الفلسطينيين؟
عشان
احنا ايش؟
فلسطينيين.
عشان احنا فلسطينيين، مزبوط. انه كمان ناجي العلي لما تهجر من بلده الشجرة هو واهله كان هو ولد صغير وما كانش زلمة كبير وطلعه. لا هو مش بوبو، كان تقريبا عمره تقريبا قدكم.
بس هو بصف ثالث الحقيقة.
والحقيقة بصف ثالث؟ لا بدنا نرجع نتأكد من المعلومات، هي مكتوبة عنا هون.
Some important questions that you can ask young learners about Naji al-Ali's cartoon. You could show this image to them. This is a young Palestinian boy. What does this young Palestinian boy look like? Can you see his face? Can you see his eyes? Why do you think you can't see his eyes?
So we're not going to go through all of it because it's long, but this is just kind of giving you an idea of what the PIOS curriculum does. It's kind of just laying out exactly what you need to do and also giving the teachers kind of the awareness and the education about these topics. And I provide resources for teachers to be able to read more about, Naji al-Ali, for instance, this political cartoonist who is Palestinian. So I also use children's book literature in the classroom as well. And even with older kids, I think it can be a really powerful tool to encourage just storytelling more generally and for students to feel empowered to share their stories. And so these are two of my children's book. My Name is Palestine is my first one, and it's about a superhero who has the map of Palestine in her eye, and she helps to free Palestine. And I was inspired because I actually have a stripe in my eye, and my mom always told me that that was the map of Palestine. So that kind of inspired the idea. And then also Janine and the Precious Palestine Pie is actually a book about the Nakba. And she hides the map of Palestine in the pie so everybody knows that the PIOS are Palestinian. And then this is my more recent book, Where is Palestine? And it talks about different Palestinian cities, and it's a look and find book. But literature is a very important way of highlighting stories of Palestinians to convey the history in a way that gives agencies to the community themselves. And there are many book lists, specifically like social justice books has book lists on Palestine and Arab representation that you can look at, and they filter it for different age groups as well. And like I said before, it's a great tool for storytelling in middle school and high school classrooms as well, and encourages students to tell their own stories. So I do activities with my children's books specifically, where, for instance, like we do a cooking activity for the Janine book, where I give them cookies that are the cutout of the Palestinian map, and then they can decorate them. And for My Name is Palestine, we have a session where kids can dress up as the superhero and they have to solve different problems in their classroom. And so, just kind of making it interesting. Obviously, for older kids, this would be adapted. So there's a lot of banning of children's books on Palestine, which I think is a clear example of trying to erase Palestine in American education across educational institutions. And obviously, this is true of many other topics. There's a lot of banning of books. A lot of critics state that talking about Palestine is teaching children to hate, and we really need to unpack that argument because it's simply not true. And we're just trying to give agency to Palestinians and make Palestinian and Arab students feel safe and feel heard. And it is important that we teach about Palestine and other underrepresented indigenous communities of color. I also have a video through the curriculum about a book that was banned about Palestine, a children's book. I'm not going to go over it now, but I would be happy to share these resources with you all so you can look into them after the presentation. And so the conclusion is just that this PIOS curriculum can really help teachers talk about Palestine in their classroom through these in-class workshops where we can come in and do these workshops as Palestinians, or through the video lesson plans where we can help provide resources for you all in the classroom as teachers. We also have book lists that we can provide, additional lesson plans, any support that you really need as a teacher to educate yourself more about Palestine and to feel well equipped to teach your students about it. And it is essential that we check these biases that we have as educators and see where we apply these ideas of progressivism to certain communities and not others, and to not make Palestine that exception. And that it's so, so important. I want to stress this again, that when discussing Palestine, we have to distinguish between Zionism and Judaism, because I'm just as much a supporter of being against anti-Semitism in our schools, just as much as I am against, I'm against people not allowing us to talk about Palestine. So I feel like those go hand in hand. Anti-Semitism is something that should definitely not be in our schools. And when we understand the distinction between Zionism and Judaism, that helps us to better understand that speaking about Palestinian freedom and Palestinian self-determination and positive depictions of Palestine is in no way anti-Semitic, and being critical of Israel is not anti-Semitic. It is rather a critique of a settler colonialist entity that we would critique in any other part of the world as well. So just to conclude too, I want to say if anyone wants to contact me, thank you so much for having me. You can, here's my contact information. I'd be happy to provide any resources, come into the classroom and help you all in your space, whether you have a hostile environment towards Palestine or one that's more welcoming. I've had experience in both. And I just want to stress that the Palestinian issue is one that I'm focusing on because it is an exception, but it should be seen alongside any other social justice struggle. And we must have international solidarity and apply our same ideals of justice and freedom and self-determination to all groups of people and all marginalized communities. So thank you so much for having me. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but thank you.